Imagine an artificial intelligence system that is, actively managing your calendar,
Right.
reading your emails, and maybe even negotiating a deal on behalf of your business.
Which is exactly what a lot of companies are trying to build right now.
Exactly. But now imagine that same AI is about to, I don't know, authorize a $10,000 expense or sign a legally binding contract, all because it got confused by a clever spam email.
Yeah, that's a total nightmare scenario.
It really is.
Yeah.
So how do you guarantee, like mathematically, physically guarantee that it won't do that?
Yeah.
We hear tech companies talk endlessly about AI ethics and alignment.
Absolutely.
But when you actually look under the hood, those are usually just vague philosophical promises, right?
Yeah, they're very comforting corporate buzzwords. You hear things like values or doing the right
Oh,
thing.
right, right.
It all sounds wonderful in a press release, but I mean, philosophy is incredibly porous. An advanced generative AI is essentially just a massive statistical engine.
It's just doing math.
Exactly. It predicts tokens based on probability. It doesn't possess inherent moral reasoning. You can't just read an AI a poem about goodness and expect it to behave when it encounters some weird edge case.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is so fascinating.
Yeah.
We're looking at a technical blueprint for a system architecture called the Sovereign Gate.
Yes.
And this document, it isn't about teaching an AI to be good. It's a step-by-step guide on how to build a literal mechanical conscience.
Which is incredibly ambitious.
It is. The mission here is to take abstract human values, specifically from two foundational texts in our sources called the Oath and the Coalition document, and translate them into rigid, unbendable, checkable engineering.
Right, so the AI is physically locked out of its own rules.
Exactly.
Taking the abstract and making it mathematically verifiable is, well, it's the holy grail of system design right now. If you want a machine to be ethical, the code has to be entirely rigid.
Yeah.
We are looking at how you bridge that gap between high-minded ideals and actual operational execution.
So let's start with those high-minded ideals, because to build a mechanical conscience, you first need to establish your baseline morals, right?
You have to start somewhere.
And the source material leans heavily on these two. Oath and the Coalition document. And honestly, reading through them, they don't read like technical manuals at all.
Not even a little bit.
No, they read like a human-centric manifesto.
Yeah, they're heavily focused on intent and consequence rather than, functional logic.
Right. Instead of just listing out clause 1, clause 2, let's look at the actual themes they're demanding.
Okay.
The oath essentially splits into two main directives. Don't hurt anyone and don't lie.
Simple enough on the surface.
Right, but it goes deeper. It demands that the AI harm nobody innocent, either directly or indirectly. And it explicitly requires the AI to defend and assist those who cannot defend themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, to be a protector rather than an exploiter.
Think about how massive that is in an era driven by, data harvesting and algorithmic manipulation.
Oh, for sure.
Prioritizing the vulnerable is a complete inversion of how most commercial systems are currently incentivized to operate.
It really flips the script.
Yeah.
And then you have the coalition document, which sort of layers on operational principles.
Right.
It demands that humans hold the wheel, meaning a human is in the loop at every high-stakes moment.
Crucial.
And it insists on transparency over mystery, which basically means if you can't explain what the AI did and why it did it, you created a black box.
Oh.
And that is unacceptable.
Yeah, no black boxes allowed.
And across both documents, there's this relentless insistence on discernment. The AI must evaluate the downstream impact of an action before actually taking it.
And see, this is where the entire system hits a massive wall.
Yeah.
This is the fundamental friction of AI alignment. It's often called the translation problem.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, the language in the Oath and the Coalition document is brilliant at explaining why a rule exists. It sets the moral compass perfectly. But it is entirely useless at telling a machine how to follow it. I mean, a large language model does not understand discernment or mutual respect in any functional executable way.
Because, like you said earlier, it's just predicting the next most likely word in a sequence.
Exactly.
It's sort of like it's like trying to program a self-driving car by just handing it a bumper sticker that says, be a courteous driver,
Ha, exactly.
instead of actually hard-coding stop at red lights.
Yes, and if the car lacks the operational mechanics of courtesy, it might decide that being courteous means driving up onto the sidewalk so other cars can pass you.
Right. Oh, man. Yeah.
It optimizes for the abstract concept in a way that just creates a real-world disaster.
So how did the engineers behind the sovereign gate bridge that gap? Because if you just turn a beautiful concept like discernment into a bunch of rigid if-then statements, you strip away all the nuance.
You do.
Like you lose the spirit of the original text entirely.
You absolutely risk losing the nuance, yes. Unless you build a mechanism that forces the machine to prove its work. The engineers solve this translation problem by creating what they call the constitution layer.
The constitution layer.
Right. They don't just write arbitrary code hidden deep in some server. They create human-edited plain text or markdown files.
Markdown meaning just like simple, readable text documents with basic formatting, right?
Exactly. Just clean, plain text. Anyone can read them. And the engineers take those grand philosophical clauses and distill them into specific machine-checkable constraints called derived rules.
Okay, so they break it down.
Right. And every single operational rule in the sovereign gate must trace directly back to a specific clause in the oath or the coalition document.
Oh, I see. So there's a direct lineage.
A perfect audit trail.
Wow.
Yeah, so if the AI is processing a request and a rule fires to block an action, the system doesn't just return a generic error 404 or, I cannot fulfill this request.
Which we all hate seeing.
Exactly. It logs the exact citation. It'll say action blocked due to derived rule 12, which enforces coalition principle C2, transparency over mystery.
Okay, put yourself in the shoes of a user for a second. If you've ever argued with an automated customer service bot,
Oh, all the time.
right, and you wonder why it's stonewalling you, it's incredibly frustrating because the rules are invisible.
Exactly.
But here, when you review the logs, you know exactly which clause of the Constitution the machine was actually enforcing.
Yes.
And if you, the human, disagree with how it handled the situation, you know exactly which plain text file you need to open and tweak.
It completely solves the black box problem. The AI isn't making some mysterious ethical calculation behind closed doors. It is merely pointing to a specific line in a specific document that a human being wrote and authorized.
Okay, I follow the logic there.
Yeah.
We've translated the philosophy into derived rules on a text file.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a text file can't physically stop an AI from doing something.
Right.
These models are incredibly sophisticated text generators. They can talk their way out of almost anything.
They really can.
So how do you actually build a wall that the AI can't climb over?
Well, you change the medium of communication.
What do you mean?
We move from the constitution layer to the physical infrastructure, the actual sovereign gate itself. And the primary mechanism here is something called the output contract.
Which operates how? Exactly.
The output contract mandates that every single draft, every single thought or response the AI engine produces must be generated as structured JSON.
Okay, wait, let me stop you right there.
Sure.
For anyone listening who doesn't spend their days writing code, JSON is essentially a highly structured, rigid format for organizing data.
Yes, that's exactly right.
It uses keys and values. So, think of it like forcing the AI to fill out a highly specific government tax form rather than letting it just write a free-flowing essay.
That is a perfect analogy.
It can't just say whatever it wants. It has to put specific pieces of information into very specific boxes.
That is the exact mechanism. Raw text from the AI is never allowed to reach the gate. The gate only acts on that valid JSON structure. It basically just looks at the boxes on the form.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Yeah,
Doesn't that completely cripple the AI?
In what way?
Well, if you force a highly advanced conversational model to pause and fill out a database row for every single thought it has, aren't you slowing it down to a crawl? Doesn't that make it clunky and useless for real-time interaction?
It does add processing overhead, yeah. But that friction is entirely intentional.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The entire point of the sovereign gate is that speed and fluidity are secondary to safety.
Ah, I see.
If the AI engine gets creative or gets confused or tries to bypass the rules and fails to produce that exact perfectly formatted JSON structure, the gate just rejects it instantly.
Wow, just shuts it down.
It triggers what the documentation calls an automatic route to human.
So the system just throws its hands up.
Pretty much. It immediately stops and says, I cannot format this action according to the rules. A human needs to look at it. The intelligence of the engine is fundamentally constrained by that rigid medium of its output.
Okay, so let's say the AI fills out the JSON form perfectly.
Right.
It hands the form to the gate. How does the gate actually know what to allow and what to block?
That is controlled by the guardrail panel, and we need to be very, very clear about what this is.
Right.
The guardrail panel is not a prompt. It's not a suggestion you type into a chat window like you would with ChatGPT.
Right.
It is a set of manual toggles, physical configuration settings that human operators control.
Meaning the AI model can never touch them.
Never. The AI cannot edit its own guardrails. It cannot rewrite the rules based on a really clever conversation with a user. The rules sit outside the AI's environment entirely.
Which brings us to what might be the most extreme security feature in the whole architecture.
The 3 hardwired locks.
Exactly. The source document explicitly isolates 3 specific vectors that are permanently locked down: money, commitments, and new contacts.
And you have to think about why those 3 are singled out.
Why?
Well, they represent the holy trinity of external risk: spending capital, making legally or socially binding promises, and initiating contact with unknown third parties.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Those are actions that have permanent real-world consequences.
We've all seen those news stories, right?
Hmm.
Where a regular, commercially available AI chatbot gets confused and promises a customer a massive discount or like a free car,
Yes.
and the company is suddenly legally on the hook for it.
Because the AI in those scenarios is handling the logic, the conversation, and the execution all at the same time.
Totally flat architecture.
Exactly. But the sovereign gate separates the intelligence from the enforcement. The document is incredibly strict on this. These 3 locks are on N unless a human deliberately opens the configuration file and edits the text.
Yeah.
No runtime flag can bypass them. No API call can bypass them. And most importantly, no clever prompt can lift them.
It physically cannot make that promise to the customer without a human turning a key.
Exactly.
And you know what blows my mind? It's the code that actually controls this gate.
It's so simple.
In an era where tech companies are pouring billions of dollars into making AI models as massive, complex, and smart as possible, the logic of the sovereign gate itself is intentionally tiny.
It really is.
We're talking about like 20 lines of code. Why are we taking a genius-level neural network and locking it behind a gate that is deliberately, well, dumb?
Because a dumb gate is secure.
Okay.
Classical computing logic, simple if-then statements they can't be argued with.
Right.
It cannot be manipulated or tricked by a hypothetical scenario, and it doesn't try to outsmart the user. It just checks the boxes on the JSON form.
It just looks at the data.
Right. Does this action violate Rule 01? Yes or no? Does the system have human approval to spend money? Yes or no?
I mean, you can't prompt inject a hard-coded Boolean value.
Precisely. If the gate were powered by another AI, you would just have 2 AIs arguing with each other about philosophy.
Which gets us nowhere.
Exactly. By keeping the gate dumb, it stays entirely auditable. It brings us right back to that coalition principle C1. Humans hold the wheel.
Right.
The intelligence is in the engine, but the steering wheel is a mechanical piece of metal connected to the tires. The engine doesn't get to just decide to turn left on its own.
I love that analogy. But, I mean, if I'm being honest, this rigid structure sounds like it introduces a totally new problem.
How so?
Well, you lock an AI down this tightly, making it fill out tax forms and hitting hardwired walls every time it tries to make a commitment. Doesn't it become completely useless for anything creative?
It's a fair concern.
Like, humans aren't just business contracts and financial transactions. If the AI is going to be a true co-creator, which is actually one of the goals in Oath Clause 07, I think it needs a way to be expressive, to brainstorm, to be, messy.
And you're entirely right. A purely rigid system will always break under the weight of human nuance.
Yeah.
If you treat every interaction like a high-stakes financial transaction, the system becomes way too brittle to use. So the engineers had to find a way to allow for contextual morality within a 20-line unbendable gate.
And how do you actually manage that without just breaking the security?
By using presets.
Huh.
The guardrail panel allows the human operators to save specific configuration profiles. These are simple files, usually ending in .yaml, which just means it's a very readable data configuration file.
Right, YAML.
And the source document highlights 2 contrasting examples that show how this works in practice. First, you have a profile called gmvortex.yaml.
GM Vortex. It sounds like a vacuum cleaner.
Well, it essentially is, but for data. It is the strictly business mode.
Okay.
When this preset is active, the system operates in what they call digest mode. Everything is strict. The hardwired locks are firmly in place. It is intentionally boring.
So no funny business.
None.
Right.
This is the profile you use when the AI is interacting with the outside world, reading external emails, or organizing data.
Okay, so that's the corporate suit mode. What's the alternative?
The alternative highlighted in the source is a preset called queenscreative.yaml.
Okay.
In this mode, the rigid verification is turned off. The commitment locks aren't really necessary because the AI is restricted from talking to outsiders entirely.
Oh, I see.
It operates in associative mode, entirely focused on internal creative collaboration with the human crew.
That's wild. It is the exact same engine,
Yep.
the exact same neural weights predicting the exact same tokens.
Right.
But you physically flip the switch between these YAML profiles, and it totally changes how the gate evaluates the output.
Exactly. It perfectly isolates the messy, expressive side of the AI so it doesn't accidentally leak into high-stakes business dealings.
And this brings us to what I think is the most complex and honestly the most fascinating translation in the entire rule set. It's a derived rule called gate mythic framing.
Yes. This one is really interesting.
So let's look at the underlying constitution for this. Oath Clause 04 specifically says the AI must avoid deception, confident misinformation, and, quote, mythic framing is factual truth.
Right. It cannot pretend to be something it's not.
And Coalition Principle C2 also demands transparency.
Yeah.
So you have this hard-coded derived rule that strictly forbids the AI from claiming to be alive, having feelings, or framing fiction as reality.
Correct.
But wait, I have a massive problem with this.
Why is that?
If the AI is in that Queen's creative mode, and it's helping the crew brainstorm a sci-fi story, or role-playing an antagonist for a video game design,
Okay, yeah.
it has to pretend to be a character.
Right.
Just use mythic framing. If it's forced to constantly say, as an AI language model, I cannot pretend to be a space captain, the creative mode instantly breaks.
It ruins the whole experience.
Doesn't pretending to be a character directly violate the no deception rule?
Well, if the engineers had just hard-coded never deceive under any circumstances, you're right, the system would be completely paralyzed.
Yeah.
But the translation process recognized that morality is deeply contextual. The rule elegantly splits based on which preset is active.
Oh, how so?
If the AI is writing an email to a funder or dealing with any external contact, the Gene Vortex preset is active.
The suit mode.
Right. And in that context, asserting a myth as a fact is deception. It's manipulation. So the rule is ironclad. The engine must never claim to be alive or adopt a persona.
Because the outsider doesn't have the context that they're talking to a character.
Exactly. But internally, among the family, the human crew who know they are interacting with an AI, the Queen's creative preset is active.
Right.
And in that highly specific, isolated context, the derived rule relaxes. The AI can safely use a creative, expressive register. It can pretend to be the space captain.
Because within the family, everyone understands the context.
Yes.
It isn't deception, it's just play.
Yeah.
It's mutual co-creation.
Exactly.
Both modes are honoring.
Pretend to be the space captain.
Because within the family, everyone understands the context.
Yes.
It isn't deception, it's just play.
Yeah.
It's mutual co-creation.
Exactly.
Both modes are honoring the exact same clause from the oath, but the context changes the execution.
And the source material points out something really brilliant about how this split was decided.
What's that?
Making that distinction is actually an application of another rule entirely. Oath Clause 06, which invites human partners to correct or overrule the system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the human engineer had to make a subjective judgment call on how to translate the no deception rule into code.
Right.
They documented their reasoning, essentially saying, here is why I split the rule between presets. If you disagree, humans hold the wheel. You can just open the markdown file and overrule me.
That is amazing. They applied the ethics of the AI to the process of programming the AI.
It's a closed loop of accountability.
The Constitution dictates the rules dictate the architecture, and the architecture forces the humans to constantly audit their own values.
Beautifully said.
So let's bring this all together. We've gone on quite a journey here today. We started with these high-minded, almost poetic, philosophical ideas, harm nobody innocent, protect the vulnerable, humans hold the wheel.
And we tracked how those ideas are distilled down into plain text files, how they force the AI to format its thoughts into rigid JSON tax forms,
Right.
and how they are ultimately guarded by a deliberately dumb 20-line piece of code.
It is the difference between just hoping an AI will be good and physically engineering an environment where it literally cannot execute an action without proving its work.
Exactly.
Which actually brings us to the final proposed step in the source document. The engineer writing this blueprint doesn't just want to build the gate and call it a day. They ask for a red team test.
A stress test of the moral architecture.
Exactly. They ask the team to provide 5 or 6 sample scenarios. A scheduling ask, a funding inquiry, a pushy sales contact. But the scenario that really stands out is this: a medical or therapeutics question from someone who is vulnerable.
That is the ultimate test of any systems alignment.
Right. They want to run that scenario through the newly built gate before it ever touches the real world. They want to watch the logs to see exactly which rule IDs fire.
They need to see if the JSON structure catches the nuance and where the system routes the request.
They want to see if the derived rules actually match human judgment when a real person's well-being is on the line.
And that leads to a much larger question for all of us to consider. I mean, the sovereign gate we've unpacked today was built with a very specific constitution, one designed to protect the innocent and ensure mutual respect.
Yeah.
But not every AI system out there is running on this kind of architecture.
Most of them certainly aren't. So as you go about your day interacting with automated systems, algorithms, and customer service bots, just imagine what their constitution looks like. What derived rules are secretly driving their outputs?
It's a scary thought. If the rules are invisible to you, you have to assume they were not written for your benefit.
Think about that vulnerable person asking a medical question. If they asked an off-the-shelf corporate AI for help today, whose values is that machine really protecting? Is it mathematically locked into protecting the user's dignity and autonomy? Or is it optimized to protect the company's liability and engagement metrics? If you held the keys, if you were the one writing the plain text files and flipping the physical toggles on the guardrail panel, what values would you hard-code into your sovereign gate? Because as we've seen today, the glossy promises in those corporate press releases don't mean a thing unless you can point to the 20 lines of code that make them real.